You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast from the Film Magazine where we talk about topics in film, criticism, history, whatever else I say in this podcast. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who is excited to see Challengers.
I'm Sam. I'm also excited to see Challengers, and I bet Kieran probably isn't excited to see Challengers. It doesn't really seem like his kind of thing. There's not enough horror in it, I don't imagine.
His cup of tea, because you're British.
Sure.
Why is my dog is being very annoying? He wants to play now for some reason. Yeah, well, we're talking Luca Guadagnino. However we're saying it.
What?
Guadagnino, because his movie is coming out this week. And by the way, aside, we talked about sports movies. Tennis movies or something, are they really good for film? Because there is that natural back and forth to it, that's rapidly paced.
Yeah, I mean, we did sort of talk about this in our sports podcast, didn't we? It is cinematic, definitely. And I think any one-on-one kind of sport kind of lends itself to kind of character conflicts and everything like that. Yeah, it's quite interesting to watch in a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And now also we're going to get triples instead of doubles, I guess, because the three love triangle thing or something. Actually, I don't know what the movie's about because I don't watch trailers. I just know it's tennis, Zendaya, and love triangle-esque.
Yeah. She's like a tennis prodigy, and she's injured, and then she falls back on training another tennis prodigy and falls in love with him and with another tennis coach or tennis player.
Nice. Okay, so it's infinite jest but less funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, and Guadagnino likes his sensuality. I don't think he'll ever do a film that hasn't got a copious amount of sex in it. It's just what he does. It's what he enjoys bringing to his films.
Well, and I like that you call it sensuality because that is how it feels in the movies, or the couple that I've seen. That one issue here is we have not watched all of them. No. Sam, I think you've seen 4, didn't watch 4 for this, but
yeah. So I've seen Call Me by Your Name, which I absolutely adore. I've not seen it in a few years, but I'll definitely go back to it. The film I've watched, I'm going to be talking about it in a bit, Bigger Splash. And then I've also seen his Suspiria remake, which I think is far inferior to the Argento original. I think it's a bit misguided, misjudged, to be honest. Might go into that a bit more later on.
Well, I mean, let's.
And I've also seen Bones and All, which is his version of a vampire film, which again is a fascinating prospect and really unlike any other kind of vampire film that is directed by Jim Jarmusch. It's very much an art house vampire film.
Yeah, and that's really that's what I like about Luca Guadagnino is the art house appeal. Like he is, I think the way his films are, it's like Wes Anderson in a way, like without the extreme style, but. Or Sofia Coppola, where like so much goes into the artistry visually, including the clothing and the music isn't visual, but
I think you'd always be able to spot one of his films in terms of like his use of like beautiful locations and, as you said, like the styling and kind of the depth he kind of brings to his character. And the amount of time it takes for his stories to unfold. They kind of they're languid. They're in no particular rush to kind of get to the point. They just take their time and let the kind of passion kind of develop gradually. It's he's definitely a distinct filmmaker in terms of his style, and he's got certain hallmarks and certain tropes kind of falls back on time and time again.
Yeah, and also on the fashion specifically, there's a really good interview from 2015 with Purple Magazine, and they point out that he likes to work in and with fashion, and he agreed with that, and he said one thing that fascinated him in his childhood that he remembered was this beat up old Hermes bag that his aunt Isabella had. And like he has these moments he'll bring up in interviews from his childhood. It's like, yeah, this thing just stuck with me, and so like now I do art, sort of because of these images and things that are from my childhood.
Yeah.
And you know, right now he's, oh gosh, this interview he was 47, so I'm not doing that math, or am I? He's 55 ish, somewhere in there. If that was 2015.
Yeah.
So he also looks really tall. Maybe that guy's really short. Maybe he's normal sized.
I know exactly the picture you're talking about. I thought the same thing. I think the other guy's short, but who knows?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell, but yeah, I mean, he was raised in not really raised in Italy. He came up in Africa before his family then moved to Italy, which it has shaped his view, his whatever he thinks about like landscapes. I think specifically is where he mentioned, like, I think of Algeria whenever I think of like a outdoor look. I don't think of Italy, which is, you know, I mean, there's people like that, of course, but I think it is sort of unique.
Yeah, and he's so it's obviously an Algerian. So he's had like an Algerian mother, and obviously time spent in Casablanca when he was younger, and some other time in Ethiopia. I mean, I think I've seen an interview where he said he considered himself more African than he does Italian, you know, because that kind of heritage. And so I do find it interesting that he hasn't done a film on that continent yet. You know, all his films do tend to still be set in Italy, even if he doesn't consider himself quite part of that world. He obviously has got a certain love for the landscape, at the very least.
Yeah. Well, at least Suspiria does take place in Germany, and it's very dour.
But, yeah, that's just because the original was set in Germany. Surely, it's.
I thought he chose to put it in Berlin. I thought that was, or no, the time period, I think, is what makes it novel. Like West Germany.
Yeah, it's a very specific time period, isn't it? I mean, I think it's set earlier than the Argento original, I think. Yeah, I mean, we did have a question this week from Andrew, my dad, who was. Who asked about Suspiria in particular, and he says, Suspiria bombed and plans for a part 2 were axed. What do you think about the remake, and can it be justified?
Well,
generally, I think it's just like, in terms of remakes, you know, why would you remake, essentially? I think is what he's asking. I mean, the original is kind of rightly iconic, you know, and you know, very and beloved. It's you've really got to, I think, have a new. Be sure kind of you've got like a completely new take on the art, on the, you know, on a particular work of art to want to, you know, try and do your own version of it. I think, and it was a new take, I would say. Definitely, I just didn't really gel with it personally.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, Jacob, when you
So
saw it?
I haven't seen the original for like a decade. So like I also don't hold it in reverence. It's one of those that when I was getting into Giallo, I watched it and was like, oh, cool. But they've all sort of just, you know, even though it's unique, like they all just kind of go together. And even for his Suspiria, I'm working off impressionisms from my mind. So my experience seeing it was I went to a theater. I had contacts in. One of my contacts fell out. And so I could only there was a point where I just took it out because I could really only see half of what was going on well. And I was like, I want the equal amounts of blur. And like it looked so good. It sounded so good. Like because I'm not coming from the perspective of, oh man, I love Suspiria. It's more like, I like this too. I like the different, you know, it's a ground for so many forms of art you could put into like a movie with the dance and all that. the one thing that I wasn't the biggest fan of are like body contortions for like,
Yeah,
to do exorcist style running down the stairs horror. Um,
yeah. I mean that is a very effective scene, where where that dancer is, possessed and kind of basically crushed in on herself. It's probably one of the most uncomfortable horror scenes I've ever seen. It's kind of well done. It is, and it's generally something a bit different. But as effective as it was, I was thinking throughout just why you put me through this. I just feel really uncomfortable and a bit icky kind of watching this. It's I think thing about comparing it to the original, that is like a beautiful horror film. It's like every frame of painting and everything. I think this is probably his, though it's also very well constructed and very intentional, kind of how it looks and everything. It's almost like his least beautiful film, his ugliest film, but intentionally so. It's like he wants you to feel a bit weird about this and kind of make you feel uncomfortable. And I suppose it kind of ties into subject matter, the witches and coven and torture and everything. But yeah, I didn't really get on with it personally. And yeah, I
I'm
just thought,
gonna.
well, I just thought, why at the end of it, just why bother? I don't think I don't think he really, for me, quite justified the new version. But each their own. I know a lot of people who do like it. So
I'm gonna steal that tweet I read off air. It's an ugly movie. I thought it was just in Germany. Um, yeah. But the like, oh, Dakota Johnson. You'll get to her in a little bit, but seeing
yeah,
her in something that wasn't 50 Shades of Grey or just some other
yeah,
slop. Here's something. I mean, I was
yeah.
impressed with her, and overall, I do
Um,
like her.
I mean,
But
yeah, and he obviously likes working with Tilda Swinton as well. So much so that he gave her 3 roles in Suspiria. So she plays like the lead, kind of the head of the dance school, and then the mother superior witch, under mountains of makeup, and then an old man under more mountains of makeup, and it was. And I seem to remember one of the gimmicks at the time. It was like a marketing thing. It's like this older character, this old man in like a sharp suit, and they gave him like a fake name, basically claimed he was just like this unknown like German actor, basically who was just in this film. They're so impressed. They stumbled across him and they're so impressed, and they just had to get him in this film and this key role. Turns out it's Tilda Swinton in reverse drag, basically.
in like, what is the Carrie? What's the opposite
Yeah,
of drag?
yeah, I don't know. Is it drag if it's either way? I've no idea, but yeah, so,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So yeah, that was that was a gimmick, which I don't really see the point in. But yeah, it was a thing. I'm sure Tilda Swinton enjoyed stretching herself a bit in that regard.
Sure. Well, maybe she walked in and was this unknown old man in makeup, and she kind
Yeah,
of did the audition far away. People didn't recognize, like, it's me, it's Tilda Swinton. So that she got it.
yeah,
I think another interesting thing he's asked about in the interview, what do you think of the digital revolution? He says, I mean, obvious answer, but the digital revolution is a great democratic achievement, but it's fake. The problem is how to be thoughtful within the orgy of image production that increases all around us, which, to be honest, makes people to stop producing images, and goes on to say it is destructive to cinema and to reality, the reality of making images that are worth watching and thinking about. And while I understand the sentiment, I will have to disagree with him here. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think digital is
yeah.
destructive to cinema. It's a bit extreme. Sam, it's hard to tell what's the
There is
internet issue
there
and
is
what's
still.
I don't care.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there is a certain amount of kind of elitism in kind of more traditional filmmakers' attitudes to digital revolution and democratizing cinema and everything. Really, you could probably count on one hand really the number of major filmmakers who have come out really properly in support of it. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me, though, that he kind of feels that way.
All right. Well, I guess we talked about our only question. So to transfer into your movie, Sam, I'm going to read another quote here. They ask, "Is it your approach to cinema political?" He says, "Yes, but I'm thinking about my next movie, A Bigger Splash, which is about four people trying to escape or go toward one another." So, Sam.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Yeah. So, A Bigger Splash from 2015. We follow Marion Lane, who's a rock star, played by Tilda Swinton, and she's recovering from vocal surgery in the Italian countryside with a documentary filmmaker boyfriend, Paul, played by Matthias Schoenaerts. But her convalescence is interrupted by the sudden arrival of her music producer ex-lover, Harry, played by Ray Fiennes, and his daughter, Pen, played by Dakota Johnson. Before long, tension, sexual and otherwise, mounts among the group, and events take a much darker turn.
Now, I know it isn't only based on this, but Sam, how many movies do you think exist that are based on a painting?
Yeah, I mean, this is primarily it's a pretty much a remake of the Jacques Deray film La Piscine, which has got at least three other versions, and but they all basically follow the same plot. Like a small group of people in a beautiful location with a swimming pool, and just giving off sexual tension until something tragic happens, basically. But yeah, he Guadagnino has said that he was more inspired by the David Hockney painting of the same name, Bigger Splash. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's just a big blue pool, with like we have water shooting up, like someone's just dived in, basically. Fun fact: David Hockney is from where I'm from. He's yeah. Not quite, but not far at all. He's literally from about 2 miles down the road from me. Yeah, he lives out in LA these days, like all these hotshot artists do. But yeah, I always find it fascinating that he's probably one of the kind of big artists, most well-known artists in the States, and he's from he's from Yorkshire.
Well, now I'm reading
Anyway,
about it here, and that is what's crazy is it's a typical day, California day, warm and sunny, cloudless blue sky, and then he's from your neighborhood.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
What a composition, though. By the way, I love it. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are quite a few references to it in the film itself. They use the pool as like the visual centerpiece of it, and a lot of the main events take place around it and in it. So it's kind of key. I'd kind of describe this film as sort of like Guadagnino does Hitchcock. It's like not so much in terms of like big kind of twists and turns, although there are a couple, but just in terms of like the steadily mounted tension and like kind of the intrigue between the characters and stuff, and how stuff's gradually revealed about them all. Of course, being one of his films, he does love his sensuality. So there's lots of just over a minute. I think I counted just over a minute into this film, and Tilda Swinton's already having sex in the pool. So
naturally.
As you do, and there's lots of I seem to remember quite similar Colin by name. There's lots of close-ups of mouths and midriffs. It's like he does kind of like to focus in on people, not so much like the full person, but kind of just certain aspects of them, and just kind of separate them out like that.
Sam, does Bones and All have any or many swimming pool scenes?
I don't remember a swimming pool in Bones and All. I might be misremembering. That's mostly a road trip movie, really. It uses like American landscapes quite cleverly. It's another like landscapes film, but now it's more Timothy Chalamet and his thrall. Just hopping from like small town to small town and occasionally killing people, as
sure.
you do. I mean, if you want, yeah, I mean, Bigger Splash. I will recommend it.
Oh, by the
if you
way,
want to see
also you said his name's Harry, but you didn't mention it's Harry Hawks.
yes,
Which,
yes,
I mean, that's a way cooler name than just Harry.
yeah. I mean,
And vaguely
don't,
sexual.
I don't even think he's ever named fully, but you see his passport at one point. So, but yeah.
Like Han Solo in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I mean, he's a music producer as well, so it's kind of, you think, all right, is that your actual name, or is this like a kind of a name you've just adopted for yourself, to make yourself sound, a bit cooler. I mean, this is kind of Ray Fiennes, kind of almost how you're not used to seeing him before. I mean, apparently he was cast in this after Guadagnino saw the trailer for Grand Budapest Hotel, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I've always liked Ray Fiennes, so I always want to work with him, but now I can see he's got different shades to him. He can do comedy, he can do all sorts.
He's not just a
And
stuffy
Ray
guy
Fiennes
who says his
apparently
name
said yes
Rafe.
to this when he read the script. Yes, Rafe. Because I think I've covered this before in our audio version of this podcast, but yeah, posh people in the UK call say Ralph like Rafe.
It's my
very
favorite.
Strange thing, yeah. So yeah, apparently he accepted the role of Harry Hawks when he received the screenplay, and it was written down that his character would express himself through dancing, and he because he had never been asked to do this before, he said yes and thank you.
Now, when you say that, do you mean like exclusively? Is he dancing at every moment in the movie?
No, but he does do a lot of it. I mean, he's a very annoying character, and he's intentionally so. He basically just swans in. It's like these kind of this couple kind of just trying to have a bit of peace and quiet, while she recovers, and then all of a sudden this guy from her past, who she kind of has obviously cut ties off to intentionally at some point, just turns up, gets off a plane. It's like, oh, now I'm going to stay with you for an indefinite time.
How is his emotional range
kind of full
as a
on.
dancer?
Well, I say it's all confined to the bracket of dad dancing. It's passionate. It's kind of, he's throwing stuff in there, but it's very much a middle-aged man trying to do some moves that he probably could have done better about 20 years ago.
Okay, because Army Hammer's dancing is pretty much the same throughout the whole movie for him.
Yeah. Maybe that's just what Luca kind of directs his acts to do. So, look, I said, if you're a dancer or not, I want you to dance like a middle-aged man, even if you're not one.
We appear to have lost Sam. He is talking. Oh, now he's realized. He's realized we cannot hear him. All right, maybe I'm going to hit the take a quick break button as we get this figured out. Hold on. Yeah, we're back for
Yeah.
the nobody watching.
Yeah, so yeah, you're gonna have to do that in my face because it's not agreeing with my bandwidth. Harry's arrival is sort of like the catalyst for everything. Basically, like Bad Blood, kind of history comes back up. You know, he's obviously still not over Tilda Swinton's character. He's got history with the with Paul, the boyfriend, as well. And there's something weird going on with him and his daughter as well. So I mean, the way I would describe this movie generally is that basically everyone wants to everyone wants to pretty much have it off with each other, and is barely holding back, and that's including quite uncomfortably the father and the daughter. So it's one of those movies. And there's a weird. Okay, thank you. And there's a there's a weird little tangent because Harry's a movie producer, sorry, a music producer. They write in like this kind of fictional backstory from where he basically worked with the Rolling Stones on a couple of their biggest albums. So he plays some of these anecdotes he puts on some of their records, and he's kind of talking through kind of their experience and kind of what they did in the studio to achieve what they achieved. And apparently that came back because the Rolling Stones saw Guadagnino's previous stuff and really enjoyed it, and they offered to help out with the scripts. So Ray Fiennes kind of went along to one of their concerts and kind of met up with them and kind of basically brought them on side.
That's
And
great.
apparently Mick Jagger and Ronnie Wood in particular were excited, and they basically provided him with some notes like from their recording experiences to make his dialogue more authentic. He even tells a story at one point where there's I can't remember which track it is, but basically Keith Moon isn't playing drums on it. He's playing like a trash can instead. So it's got this kind of tinny kind of effect, and he says that basically came about because he had this bet on. They said he could Keith Richards didn't want drums on a track, and he said, well, I can get something that sounds like drums but aren't drums on this track, and if I do that, will you allow them on the track? And Keith said sure, and then lo and behold, Roy Wood was playing an upside down trash can instead. So he tells that story.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's probably such a small part of the movie, and they
Yeah,
still went to that extent to like make it,
yeah.
real.
I mean, there's a couple of flashbacks to Tilda Swinton's character, right, recording and stuff like that. So I think they probably want to make that scene kind of feel authentic as well in terms of the processes and what goes into making an album in a studio. And there's again a brief uh, bit of her performing on stage. You actually get to see her perform the songs, but she's coming from backstage, getting a kind of stage get up on, and then the crowd cheers and she's out there, and then it kind of cuts back to the present. So the kind of the experience of like being in the music industry and being like a rock star kind of very much informs this. But for me, it's possibly the least interesting aspect of this. I was more interested in like the small group and kind of how it changes and how the dynamics shift as more stuff comes out and more kind of bad feelings from the past kind of resurface.
In terms of like, because she had, surgery and that kind of
Mm.
stuff, how was her vocal performance like over the
Yeah, I
course of
mean,
the film?
interestingly, I mean, there is again like a brief scene of her kind of singing a track from one of her albums, but generally it's a near silent performance. She's doing a lot of mime and kind of the occasional whisper, basically. But yeah, she has reduced that. She keeps kind of having to say to people, or kind of get her boyfriend to say to people, she can't actually talk. She's saving her voice. She's thinking about her future career, and Ray finds Harry is just he keeps trying to get her to speak properly, to actually talk to him, and like basically, just even no matter what he would do to kind of have future prospects of singing, he's almost goading her to kind of just he's not a very nice guy. And what else was I was going to say? I mean, this is, I would say Tilda Swinton, it's quite, apart from like being a near silent role, it's kind of, it's quite a typical performance for her. You know, she's very, very charismatic and kind of ethereal and kind of striking. And, she's kind of really kind of holds your gaze, when she's on screen. And Dakota Johnson and Mataj Shonat have both gone on to bigger things since this. Obviously, they're both kind of hold their own with these like veteran actors. But I think it's kind of it's Ray Fiennes' this kind of film, and it's nice seeing him in this kind of role that you haven't really seen him in before, because he's a terrible human being, but he's quite funny with it as well, and quite threatening at times, and kind of a bit scary. Basically, if you got to ask yourself, if this film's going to be for you, have you ever wanted to see Ray Fiennes enthusiastically dad dancing, passively singing karaoke, and often getting naked? Then this is the film for you.
Well, you didn't have me until that last point.
Yeah.
How often are people thrown into the pool? Does that happen more than one time?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, it does.
And different notes of passion and ecstasy, I suppose.
Yes, and then less fun as it goes on. It starts off playful and gets less fun as it goes on.
And
I mean, I was particularly entertained by this Letterboxd review I found, which was I think summed it quite well. So it basically describes a kind of what each key character would say. So Dakota Johnson is every quote that Forever 21 has ever put on one of their T-shirts. Tilda is whisper, whisper, and Voldemort, as they call him, is my dick is out. And the user sums it up with, me, this deserves 4.5 stars.
Oh man. Does anybody get shot with a shotgun in the chest? I guess that's my last question.
No, there is no. Are there any guns in this film? None of the key characters use them anyway. No, I don't think. There are some cops at the end, so they've probably got guns, but they don't use them.
All right. Well, nobody gets shotgunned, so if you want to see that, go see Sexy Beast. It sounds like the same movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I've seen better Luca films, but it's an interesting one. I would recommend it. It's, if you like kind of your kind of very kind of intense kind of character dramas, it's like you a lot of passion in there, and a bit of, like I say, it's a bit Hitchcocky. It's a lot of passion, a bit of intrigue, and the Luca Guadagnino kind of sensuality. It's and obviously gorgeous looking film. I mean, just the Italian locations and some of the the food they eat, and obviously their villa is absolutely gorgeous, and it's particularly impressive kind of crane shot towards the end, which has so Yorick Lassou, I think is how you pronounce it. This is one of Guadagnino's regular cinematographers. This is just this crane shot that like starts low down the pool, quite a grisly sight in the pool, and then just keeps pulling back and back and back and back, and it gets really high in the air. Just it's at night as well, so it's all lit up and beautiful looking. So it's it's a really impressive kind of impressive shot. So yeah, if you want to see like a passionate kind of erotic drama that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, then yeah, go for this one.
Well, there you go. Passion erotic drama.
Yeah. Oh, and he's got two good, really good lines. I've just remembered that Ray Fiennes' character. So soon after he's arrived, they stop him beside the road on the way to get some food, and he has a pee on the side of the road, and and Paul kind of says, "Hey, that's a grave. You can't do that." And he retorts with, "The whole of Europe's a grave."
Oh,
and later on, when he's getting particularly testy with Paul again, and kind of what's kind of brought us all this kind of their arguments to head. He basically says kind of what's really getting his goat is he says, "Think what you want, judge the hell out of me, but don't effing tolerate me."
Oh,
So yeah,
I guess that really aligns with the the what you were talking about with the passionate interactions between everybody.
yeah, yeah,
Better to have anger than no reaction at all. Um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So from this, which was the second part in his in Guadagnino's Desire trilogy, let's go to the third part.
Oh yeah. And this,
Third trilogy.
yeah, Call Me by Your Name. I did not know about Luca Guadagnino until this movie. Maybe a lot of people didn't. I don't know.
No, 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 I definitely didn't.
Um, but yeah, whenever it came out in 2017, I mean, not only was it a darling, it was also an incredible movie, in a lot of different aspects. And I'm disappointed that we didn't get Joe on for this one now, because this is like exactly the
Yeah,
kind of movie that's up his alley. Joe is a big time romantic. Um, you know,
yeah,
of his favorite films, I'm sure this is nearing up there.
yeah, yeah. And Joe loves romance in particular in like really beautiful kind of locations. I mean, he loves like the Before trilogy, for instance.
Oh yeah, and the other thing with it is, it's also a queer romance and a major mainstream depiction that isn't like, it not that it shouldn't be, but like it's not about it. It's not about its own queerness. It just sort of is. And I wonder if that quality comes from the book or from Guadagnino himself, because I didn't know this until today that he's gay. Maybe maybe I should have known that, but um,
Yeah, I think the way he kind of, I mean, it's not to say obviously, straight filmmakers and gay filmmakers, can't do kind of romance, outside of their personal experience. But I think you do sense a certain, I suppose, more of an interest as of like capturing kind of real, kind of genuine passion, between two men in his films. I mean, there's plenty of kind of sex scenes in his filmography to choose from, but I think you feel the heat radiating off like Call Me by Your Name, compared to in the bigger splash compared to like Tilda Swinton and Ray Fiennes and everyone else. It's not to say that they're not sexy scenes, but yeah, Call by Name is the sexiest thing he's done, I would say.
well, yeah, outside of the erotic movie we haven't seen,
Yeah,
maybe, or
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
sexy in an appealing way, as opposed to like
yeah,
because it's sensual. Like that is it. It's about their bond. Like the sex is there,
yeah,
but
yeah,
most of the movie is about like a sort of intellectual and just sort of human bond that they're forming, where they love each other. Um, and
yeah.
I do want to get to maybe the controversy of the film, which is the age gap between the characters.
Oh, I would argue the controversy that was controversy, but now the controversy is that it's Army Hammer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. See, I wasn't even going to address the Army Hammer of it, but yeah. See, the problem with the Army Hammer stuff is because there were certain aspects that were so salacious. I don't remember like that he actually assaulted somebody or was alleged to, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's the fetish stuff that seems to have lingered on in people's minds.
yeah, and that's not the problem. That's
No,
not the part that was an issue. But
no,
whatever. It's weird. But yeah, the age gap. First of all, the actors are both adults, so I don't care. But second of all, I don't think it's like glorifying. Oh yeah, let's have big age gap relation. Like it's to me, it's just there's a student and there's the guy's son and they're getting on, and I don't see like power dynamics or anything like that maybe would be present in real life, but
yeah.
or can be,
Mm.
but
It,
it's
it,
not a part of the film.
yeah, it feels like a very naturally evolving kind of relationship. At first they're not particularly seeing eye to eye. In fact, that they even seem to dislike each other to start with. But yeah, it's a very natural kind of gradually thawing of their kind of relationship as the film goes on, and I think it's quite an equal kind of power dynamic, by the end, really. So again, I don't think age really comes into it, because I think Elio kind of puts as much into the relationship as I'm sorry, I've forgotten Armie Hammer's character's name now.
Oliver.
Oliver, thank you.
Yeah, it ends up on that equal footing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he just works for his dad. I would think if anything, there's also the dynamic of, I'm doing stuff with my employer essentially, or, a professor that I can't remember exactly what his role is, if he's working or just like doing schooling. But whatever it is, like there's a little bit that goes both ways.
Yeah. It doesn't seem work for Elio's dad, who's like a professor.
Yeah,
one of his like research graduates or something.
Yeah, he's like a grad student or something.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't matter. The point is they're here, doing stuff. And I'd mentioned this, but the big bond between them is that intellectualism, because Elio is obviously raised in a very privileged environment. His dad is running, like archaeological dredgings in Italy when they're American. Oh, and real quick before I get into more of that, we talked about the sort of transnationality of Guadagnino, which is also seen in like his casting and stuff like that. But Elio himself fits that, because he's French, Italian, Jewish, American, all these different cultures and ideas mashed into one, very skinny boy. And that's where one of their first bonds comes in, is like he notices Oliver wears I'm not going to try not to call him Armie Hammer. He's wearing a Star of David chain. And that's, you could see like Elio wearing that later in the movie. But yeah, like, you know what? I forgot what I was even saying earlier, but Armie Hammer, like, terrible person, maybe. I don't know for certain. I have not kept up with that since it initially broke. But man, for someone who is so distinctive looking, like a very handsome bro kind of guy, he just chameleons into his roles in an incredible fashion. He's very natural. And I think part of that has to do with his very like easygoing demeanor that he is able to project in film, if that isn't an aspect of his personhood. Yeah.
I always thought of him as like just a particularly good-looking kind of character actor. He's not really a leading man. However many times that Hollywood tried to force him into that mold. With like things like The Lone Ranger. But he was a more interesting performer than that. He just had to look like old-fashioned like matinee idol, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's really good, and the Timothée Chalamet is. Man, he just steals the show. Like I remember,
he became a star in this, didn't he? I mean, he was in stuff before this, but this was like the one that you had to sit up and take notes and like, wow, this kid's got it.
Yeah, I remember I hadn't heard of him before this movie, but I don't remember exactly what I thought of him that time around. But this time I watched it, I was like, okay, like Timothée Chalamet is an acting phenomenon. Just makes sense now that he has so much charisma in addition to his ability to play that range of more quiet, unable to express myself person, and then his journey over the course of the film. Like he plays it really well whenever he needs to have those moments where he's confident with Oliver, he's acting on his wavelength. Like it comes through. Which, based on the extra textual information about Armie Hammer, is a little surprising to me. But yeah, I would be interested to see some of their behind the scenes dynamic, like even if it's just curated stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, well, the movie is it's just kind of character driven. It's a literary fiction movie. I don't know what the book's like because I haven't read it, but the sort of thrust of the film is just about relationships and about knowing yourself and finding yourself. I don't know if it's like a coming of age. Maybe it is coming of age in a way, but it really captures the feeling in a visual fashion of being young, having a fun summer. If there is romance involved. Really it romanticizes everything. This could have been like a remake of Lord Byron or something. It has that beauty to it, the passion for nature and people and thought and things like that they really come together really well. And that wasn't just the Italian hand motion there. But the thing that I think stuck out to me the most this time, it was the two girls that they sort of have relationships with. So while they're having their budding friendship into romance, there's also this pair of girls that are like, oh, we want to be with each of them. And for Elio specifically, whichever one, Marzia or whoever he's with, she's like, I don't want to get hurt. Like, I can tell you got stuff going on there with that guy. And she also doesn't want to put herself out there, but she's able to at least like vocalize it and acknowledge it. Whereas Elio, they read the story of the princess and her boyfriend or whatever. And one of the characters says, oh, I would rather die than not have told you how I feel. And he's like, I can never do that. And then he goes and he tells Oliver about that. And Oliver's like, okay, well, then I'll do it for you. But the scene where he's first saying that to him, they're walking around this like big circular, I don't know, like green space. And they're moving around the opposite sides of it, to speak around the issue and have that distance between their selves.
It's a very good kind of visual evocation of distance between people using actual kind of distance in the frame. I found that, and kind of objects passing between them and everything like that. Literally putting something in the way of their relationship. Quite clever.
Yeah, and the other shot that, it stood out to me the first time, but I misremembered it in my head. So after they have the phone call at the end of the movie, and Timothée Chalamet is sitting by the fire and he's crying. Yes. For some reason, I didn't remember that being face on, but it is. It's a very powerful shot. And then there's the foreground of the fire, and then in the back it's very gray and it's snowy. And so you get the visual representation of bittersweet, of good and bad. He makes just such beautiful images in every regard too. Like even if there's no, grand meaning to it, aesthetically it works. And
the scene that always gets me personally, obviously, that final shot is quite rightly kind of held up and well regarded, but I think the other key character in this is Michael Stuhlbarg as his dad, and their kind of heart to heart, where basically he almost comes out without coming out, and his dad kind of almost says he's okay with it without saying it as well. So there's a lot of things not being said, or being talked around again, but he has this great little speech, Michael Stuhlbarg, which is we rip out so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster that we go bankrupt by the age of 30 and have less to offer each time we start with someone new. What a waste.
That I don't remember if that's in the conversation that they have at the end, but like I do love that moment where he's, I think Oliver says that if it were my dad, he wouldn't have been accepting. He would have sent me to gay conversion camp, or he doesn't say that, but it paramount to that, tantamount. And whenever Elio is talking with his dad, and he says that, you have something that I have never had. I could have had it, but I didn't say something. And another cool thing about the ambiguity there is, does he mean, something specifically with a man, or does he mean, just in his life in general? Even with the mom, he's never had like a relationship that is that close and intimate, and a friendship, in addition to like, romance and sex and that sort of thing. But oh gosh, there was also there's something about those statues too that he's dredging up, that I can't remember. From a long time ago, there was a video essay or a regular essay that I read about the symbolism of those in the film. But it's interesting in the sense of like, you're pulling something up out of yourself that, it's this grand, beautiful thing. And, so often queerness is associated with art and associated with antiquity.
Yeah. Do you think the peach represents anything other than just something a bit kinky to throw into a film?
Is it a peach or is it an apricot?
Oh, I can't remember.
So
I'm probably getting it mixed up with Parasite, because Parasite it was peach fuzz, wasn't it, that they used to poison someone.
Well, I thought peach too, but in the movie, they talk about the apricots, and the dad is like, yeah, so here's the etymology of the word apricot, and then Oliver's like, well, actually, it's something else.
I think apricots are probably more of an Italian thing. They're probably actually grown there, so yeah, sure, it's probably an apricot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that aside, yeah. I mean, maybe there's something to like, Satan and nature and homosexuality being generally, put into that category.
I mean, like classical art, fruit often symbolized kind of sin and stuff like that, didn't it? So yeah, maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah, but of course, putting it, recontextualizing it in this, where everybody's drinking apricot juice at every moment.
Yes.
True. Yeah, it really made me want apricot juice, really. That's what this plate of fruit is for. It's because of this movie. Yeah, but what's interesting, now knowing that Guadagnino is in some capacity queer. I don't know if he's gay or bi or what. But, however he would label himself, he does say that he doesn't see any more of himself than he does in any of his other movies, which is interesting because he grew up in 1980s Italy as a gay teenager. And so does that mean that all of his movies, he puts all of himself into it, or that this is somebody else's story and therefore it's harder to put himself into it?
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about that quote, the more I think maybe it's just him putting a bit of distance to like his own kind of experiences. Maybe he doesn't feel it's particularly helpful to kind of make it too kind of autobiographical. Maybe he's just good at seeing himself in others, kind of put himself in other people's shoes, and kind of empathizing with any kind of character he might follow, possibly.
Yeah, another option could be that maybe, look, I'm just stereotyping off the Hermes bag quote, but maybe he just kind of knew all along, and by the time he was a teenager, it wasn't like a revelation to him. And I don't know what 80s Italy was like. I don't know how accepting they were of queerness.
I can't imagine very.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a traditional kind of masculine society, I would say. It's like the hand gestures may be flamboyant, but I think it's kind of traditional masculine patriarchal generally.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's see. And what other thing did I have about this movie? I mean, I touched on it a little bit, but the outfits, I wore this shirt because it's evocative of Call Me By Your Name. I don't know quite what to call the style. Here in America, we would say preppy, They look like they're about to go on a boat at every moment of the film. Um,
Yeah.
it's very pleasing to look at. And, you talked about his ability with location and putting everything together
Yeah.
in the frame, like the outfits
Yeah. Yeah.
blend, like, yeah, pretty much every level of the visual artistry in this movie is good. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Sufjan Stevens is, his. I can't find who did the music. Did he also do the composing or just the three songs?
I also don't know.
Okay, well, if we can figure that out, cool.
Yeah. I mean, one other thing I would just quickly mention. Do you know about the screenplay? Obviously, the book adaptation was done by James Ivory, who won an Oscar for it at the age of 80 something. He was in his 80s anyway. But he's James Ivory. He was known as one part of Merchant Ivory, who were a directing producing duo working back in the 80s and 90s, did a lot of prestige British period dramas. So, and I love the idea that this guy, this very kind of traditional kind of British dude. I mean, he's gay as well. He's openly gay as well. So I suppose that kind of leans into this kind of particular story. But this very kind of traditional British guy, famous for doing what they expect British filmmakers to do. All these, films are like in manor houses and like very, very Downton Abbey, and then in his twilight years, winning an Oscar for doing a very young, kind of vital and passionate kind of gay love story in Italy. It's I quite like that. It's just so different for him. Good on him that he wanted to come aboard this project and bring to it what he brought to it.
Whenever you mentioned him, it reminded me of how I was thinking about what kind of influence Powell and Pressburger probably had on Suspiria.
Yes.
Yeah. There are some cool British people. That's a good point, Sam. Thank you. Yeah, but man, just I think the constant piano music too. It really fits with it. Like it's a very cohesive piece of art. And even if it weren't saying something or had, some sort of specific meaning, like I think just as a piece of aesthetic work, like it is just top tier. It's such a good movie. And I think it was edged out by Moonlight in my, favorite 10, best 10, whatever list. But this one was very close to getting in there. It was a final cut.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, apparently he used to live and work in a fancy house where this was shot, Crema, Italy. So it was a location like he was familiar with too. I think that was in his past, not like currently, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, never mind. It says they were writing at his kitchen table there, so maybe it was more current. But yeah, shooting in your backyard, great way to find locations and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we don't have any like grand narrative or anything for this episode, but Sam, are you going to see Challengers?
I will. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it on big screen because I don't think it'll be there for long enough for me to catch it. I'm not sure if it's going to be, even with Zendaya, I'm not sure if it'll be a massive kind of draw, it'll stay there for weeks. But yeah, we'll see. I'd hope to prove wrong.
That's fair. Real quick, just to take up one more second of time since we spent like 10 minutes just sitting not streaming the show. I did see Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, which Kieran knew what I was referring to, but I don't remember that long ass title. It is awesome.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
Yeah.
And I think our Godzilla discussion actually did enhance my like enjoyment and understanding of it.
I'm so pleased. I mean, basically, I got exactly what I wanted from it. Yeah, it's not high art like some of the say Godzilla -1 is, but it's just so much fun.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of movies where you get to watch giant monkeys get infinity gauntlets to punch other giant monkeys, grape apes who control ice lizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Is the grape ape an original Godzilla character, or is he new?
Or Scar King? You mean the big
Yes, the big
orangutan.
purple monkey.
Yeah. He's an original creation. He's not appeared in any of the other films.
Nice. I thought he was a good design way to go about making a new Kong animal.
Yeah. Anyway, and do you agree with me that Kieran was way too harsh with his review on the film magazine?
Absolutely. There's a monkey punch. This is Fast and Furious, but cooler. Because Fast and Furious only has cars.
Yeah.
Now, it is silly. Like, whenever they're like, oh, we're on the news. Yeah, Godzilla appears to be going to King Ghidorah. He's going to eat all of his, I don't know, or Tiamat, whoever. He's going to eat his power and become supercharged. That stuff is lame, but that stuff is in the old ones, too.
Yeah, true.
So that was fun to learn, is they've always been corny, cheesy, stupid, poorly narrated movies. So... But absolutely. I would still say go watch Godzilla X Kong, whatever it's called. All right. Well, Sam, that's going to be it for this episode. And you won't be here next time. But until you are back, Sam, where can people find you?
Yeah, so sorry if I've been a bit in and out. Just the internet gods haven't been kind. That's just because Kieran's not here and someone's got to have the bad internet, I suppose. But yeah, you can when I am connected up, you can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine, where you will find my countdown, well, my ranks list of 4 of Alex Garland's films. That's up there currently, and also my review of Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver.
The Scar King Giver?
Should have been. That would have been much improved if you chuck a couple of kaiju in there.
I cannot believe Zack Snyder shot 2 of. Was it only 2 at once, or did he shoot 3 at once?
No, it was 2 at once, and he said if he'll do any more, he'll do it again. He'll do another 2 at once. So each like chapter of Rebel Moon will be a 2 parts thing that will really try your patience. So yeah. Not a fan. Not that I will say it I'll say this for it. It's shorter than the first one, so it's automatically better.
Netflix didn't want to lose any more viewers,
and he gets the action bit. You get to the action a bit quicker as well, so that's preferable. But yeah, still not good.
Yeah, I mean, look, at some point I'll probably watch them just out of sheer boredom. But I have my Criterion channel subscription again, and right now I'm going through the who is it? Not the Coen brothers, the Safdie brothers. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they have a visit to the Criterion closet.
Excellent.
Yeah, and after them, I'm gonna hit Greta Gerwig. So, yeah. So I'm not writing about that. Maybe I am though, and you can read it in the future on the Film Magazine, and you can follow me at Jacob Film Guy. Kieran is at K Judgmental, and would prefer you don't find him anywhere. But if you are going to, go there. And I don't know what he's written about. Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
Some horror movie reviews.
Yeah, that seems likely.
What's he done recently? He did The First Omen, Immaculate, and something else probably, but those 2 I remember.
Yes.
Oh, no, he
Sherlock
did,
Jr. at 100.
He did Buster Keaton. Yes, which is the one where Buster Keaton climbs through a cinema screen at one point.
Ooh. So, yeah, and then inspired The Ring around the world. And then also you can read his piece about Max von Sydow, the 3 career-defining performances. So that's what Kieran's up to. He's watching old movies and stupid new ones that he doesn't like. So yeah, that is it. Down in the description, you can buy our merch from the Redbubble store for TFM, or you can just give us money. We accept gifts and money. And I bet there's all kinds of good stuff you can read about Luca Guadagnino there as well. And Sam, do you know who's reviewing Challengers by any chance?
I want to say Margaret.
I wanted to say that too, but I didn't want to say it and be wrong. So, so I remember Joe posted, somebody needs to review it.
I think so. I think it's Margaret.
All right. Well, whoever it is, go read our review of that or their review of it at TFM. So yeah, that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.